Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that's honestly going to send a shiver down your spine. We are looking at a chilling sequence of events pulled directly from local accounts and modern folklore. We're not looking at spreadsheets or data models today, guys, no. We are breaking down the anatomy of a literal urban legend. Specifically, a terrifying encounter in Mumbai's infamous Aarey milk colony. Our source material gives us this incredibly vivid minute-by-minute breakdown of a supernatural encounter that forces us to really question the boundaries between psychological trauma and paranormal reality. So, I want you to turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's dissect exactly how a completely mundane commute home transforms into a fight for survival.
Okay, let's dive into this and start with a very simple but unsettling question. What happens when you ignore local legends? We've all heard the rumors, right? Places we shouldn't go after dark, desolate roads we shouldn't drive down, strangers we absolutely shouldn't help. Most of the time, we just brush these off as silly superstitions. But what if they aren't just stories? What if they're actually survival guides masquerading as myths? Well, we're going to walk through exactly what happens when those unwritten rules of the night are broken.
Section 1. The Dark Forests of Mumbai. Setting the scene.
To really understand the stakes here, we have to look at our setting, the Aarey milk colony. And notice the sheer scale of this place. This isn't just a neighborhood park. It is a massive, 900-acre dense forest sitting right in the middle of one of the most populated cities on Earth, Mumbai. By day, it's a beautiful green lung for the city. But by night, it is a pitch-black void. The source material describes it as a place deeply notorious for paranormal phenomena. It's basically a literal black hole that locals whisper has a habit of swallowing lives once the sun goes down. The geographical stakes are absolutely crucial here. Once you turn onto this road at night, you are entirely isolated. You are completely cut off from the bustling metropolis that surrounds you.
Section 2. The Fateful Midnight Detour. November 3, 2021. The real horror of this account is rooted in how incredibly relatable the setup is. Just look at this timeline. At 11:50 p.m., our protagonist, Samir, is just a guy trying to get home to Gurgaon after a late night at the office. But he hits a massive highway jam caused by an accident. At 11:55 p.m., doing what literally any of us would do, he trusts his GPS, which recalculates an alternate route. And right at the stroke of midnight, he makes the fateful decision to take a left turn, entering the desolate Aarey Colony Road. It's a completely mundane, perfectly logical sequence of events that leads him directly into a nightmare.
Inside the vehicle, the source paints a highly claustrophobic picture. Think about the sensory details here. Outside, it is a pitch-black forest with trees so incredibly dense that his headlights can only pierce about 15 feet into the gloom. It is dead silent. Not even a breeze is blowing. Inside his little isolated bubble of a car, he's creeping along at just 40 kilometers per hour. He turns on the music just to break that suffocating silence. His phone battery, sitting at 52%. These grounding details really emphasize how small and vulnerable his zone of safety is against that encroaching darkness outside.
Section 3. The Stranger in the Sari. The Inciting Incident.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer unsettling nature of her appearance. Suddenly, his headlights catch something in the gloom, and Samir slams on the brakes. Standing by the desolate roadside at exactly midnight is a solitary figure. She's wearing an old, dark black sari. Her hair falls forward, completely obscuring a pale face. And most importantly, she is tightly clutching a baby wrapped in cloth. When Samir tentatively rolls down the window, she doesn't beg or plead. In a hoarse, harsh voice, she makes a single request: a drop to Gurgaon. And this brings us to a terrifying crossroads of logic and empathy. On one side, you've got the local rumors, never stop, and never, ever give lifts in the Aarey forest at night. Samir actually knows these rumors. His very first instinct is pure survival. He initially drives right past her. But then, human nature kicks in. Samir's pity takes over. He rationalizes that this is a helpless woman with a baby stranded in a dangerous forest. His empathy tragically overrides his survival instinct. He puts the car in reverse, backs up, and invites her into the backseat.
Section 4. The Empty Back Seat. The horror begins. Once she gets in, we can actually map out Samir's rising panic in real time. Just watch this progression. Step 1. For the first minute, there is complete, unnerving silence. He asks for her name, zero response. Step 2. By minute 3, he checks the rearview mirror. She is sitting in the exact same position, head down, clutching the baby, completely motionless. Step 3. By minute 5, the dread completely peaks. He checks the mirror again. Not only has she not moved an inch, but he realizes something deeply horrifying. In that quiet car, there is an absolute absence of breathing sounds. It is an utter, impossible silence. Gripped by fear, Samir calls out to her. He looks in the mirror one more time, and she is gone. The backseat is empty. He slams on the brakes and checks the doors. Everything is completely locked. The windows are rolled up tight. It is physically impossible for anyone to have exited that vehicle. But when he slowly reaches into the back, his hand meets the seat. It isn't just empty. The fabric is completely wet and freezing cold. It bears a heavy indentation, as if a massive, icy weight had just been resting right there. He steps out onto the deserted road, desperate for answers. But the silence shatters. The faint, unmistakable sound of a baby crying starts echoing from the deep forest. Samir jumps back in, locks the doors, and hits the gas. But the sound doesn't fade. He accelerates to 60, then 70, then 90 kilometers per hour. But the crying keeps pace. It perfectly matches the speed of the car, actively chasing him through the dark. And then, the ultimate terror. The crying is no longer outside. The horrific sound breaches the safety of the car and manifests completely from the empty backseat inside the locked vehicle. This triggers what we can only describe as a total system failure, both mechanical and paranormal. Without any warning, the car engine dies instantly. The headlights shut off, plunging Samir into total pitch darkness. Trembling, he turns on his phone flashlight and aims it directly at the back seat. The cloth the woman was holding is now resting on the upholstery. He pulls it back. It's entirely empty, save for a few unexplained drops that look like tears. And then an unbearable, nauseating stench violently fills the cabin. It's a smell so unbelievably foul it makes him gag. Suddenly, something hits the window. Samir slowly turns his head. Standing right outside his window is the woman in the black sari. Her face is pressed directly against the glass. Her eyes are completely, unnervingly white. Her mouth opens slightly, and through the glass, she asks one spine-chilling question. Where is my baby? And this brilliantly illustrates how the horror shifts from psychological dread to a literal, physical chase. Screaming, Samir throws open the door, abandons his car, and sprints blindly into the dense, dark forest. As he runs for his absolute life through the trees, he hears incredibly heavy, rapid footsteps right behind him. When he finally dares to look back over his shoulder, the woman is just 10 feet behind him. But, as the source text specifically points out, she isn't running. She's floating. Section 5. Escape to the Daba, a fleeting sanctuary. Samir bursts out of the tree line and into a small, brightly lit roadside daba, a local food stall. He is panting, totally terrified. 2 local men are sitting there calmly drinking tea. When Samir stammers out a frantic description of the woman in the black sari with the baby, the color completely drains from their faces. One of them immediately stands up and utters a terrifying confirmation. How many times do we tell people not to give lifts here at night? This reaction confirms everything. Samir hasn't just hallucinated, he has stumbled directly into an active, dangerous urban legend that these locals are all too familiar with. They just tell him not to think about it, to just get home. Section 6. The haunting never ends. The aftermath. So Samir retrieves his towed car the next day, desperately hoping to leave the nightmare behind in that forest. But trauma, especially of this supernatural nature, doesn't just stay confined to the woods. At 2:30 a.m. the very next night, sleeping in his secure home miles and miles away from Aarey, Samir is jolted awake. The room is empty, but the crying is back. First, it echoes from outside his window. Then the terrifying sound moves to the roof above him. And ultimately, chillingly, the crying emanates from directly under his own bed. The entity, the trauma, whatever it is, has completely invaded every single corner of his supposedly safe sanctuary. For a full week, these sounds plague him every single night. Now, this leaves us with 2 competing explanations. On the clinical side, doctors and psychiatrists offer a highly grounded medical diagnosis. He is suffering from severe trauma and paranoia triggered by a ridiculously stressful night. They say it'll pass with time. But conversely, we have Samir's reality. To him, the haunting is entirely undeniably real. The entity from Aarey Milk Colony attached itself to his active pity and followed him right through his front door. As an explainer of this source material, we aren't here to tell you which side is definitively true, but rather to show you how an incredibly terrifying experience like this completely fractures a person's reality. So the crucial point to take away from this breakdown is the enduring power of these local legends and the very real consequences, whether psychological or supernatural, of crossing paths with them. The locals there still say that if you drive down that road late at night, you might just see her waiting. Which brings me to our final question for you to ponder tonight. Put yourself in his shoes. If you're driving on Aarey Colony Road after 11 p.m., your headlights cut through the darkness and you see a solitary woman in a black sari clutching a baby, will you stop? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and seriously, stay safe out there in the dark.